Alright, it's been a while since I posted anything after dropping Historic last year, but I've been back playing Pioneer the last couple of months and Merfolk has been solid. The build I'm running is a bit of a compromise between two plans. Plan A, to go wide with Deeproot Pilgrimage, and Plan B is to grind for value with Cocoa and other 2-for-1s. Having 4 enchantments on top of Cocoa isn't ideal for number of hits, so I'm making it up for it a little by running a low land count and including 2 Glassful Mimics as possible hits. This means I'm mulliganing quite a bit, but both halves of the plan seem good enough. I'm also experimenting with 2 stations, Uthros and Evendo, both just in the deck to tap Merfolk for pilgrimage triggers. I also just swapped my 2 1-drop Benthic Biomancers for Merfolk Secretkeeper to see if an 0-4 blocker that can attack to generate tokens safely gives more value. Alright, and here we go. Playing against Arthur196. I've played against this player a few different times, and we're on the draw. Last time I played against him, he was on blue-red Vivi. Let's see if that's the case here. I'd love a Hexcatcher if it turns out to be Vivi, but this is a pretty decent hand to keep. Also lets us try out Secretkeeper, and has a pilgrimage and a station land, so all the new tech. Let's see how this goes. Yeah, that looks like Vivi to me. Draw another Cenote. Obviously going to drop this, try and draw into some more lands. Perfect. We got our second untapped land to drop the pilgrimage. We're swinging into an Otter. So they might have removal, but holding up that blue-red on this turn is likely a blue cantrip. So let's drop a pilgrimage, see what happens. Returning the Cenote to our hand, that's interesting considering we can pull value off of that. Probably won't recast it anytime soon, but it depends what kind of lands we draw. Wonder if they're missing lands or just playing them late in the process. Oh, just playing them late in the process. Alright, lots of cantrips. I wonder if they're on Phoenix more than Vivi here. That seems like trying to load up for a treasure cruise. Alright, Boseiju gives us an option here, but I think we want to play it for tempo, not as a spell. So get Boseiju on the table, recast the... Oh, I'll cast a Silvergill first, revealing the card he already knows about. Draw our card. There's the Hexcatcher I need next turn. See what we're going to hit off of Cenote. Another land. Alright, so we've drawn into lots of lands this game, but we're not in a great position as far as being able to disrupt their plan. So let's hope they just have a lot of spells and can't actually kill us. If they don't have Trample in play or a way to remove our 2, we would sack either or both of these to block this pumped up Otter. If they offer even the chance to trade, even though they might be tricking us here, I'm going to block with the Silvergill on the Monk and make them cast something. Oh, great. I'll trade for the Monk there. Alright, so we're going to go with the... What? We have some interesting options with the Pilgrimage on the table. Do we hold up the Tidebinder to deal with the Cory Steelcutter, or do we dump a bunch of 1-drops? I think we're going to do Cenote and Tidebinder here. So I'll play the Cavernous Holes. There's a low chance they're main decking counter magic that can deal with creatures. So put the Cenote out, drawing through those lands, which is good. If we didn't have these extra draws, we'd be in big trouble. So we're going to pass here and then plan on that second spell to counter the Cory Steelcutter's ability, keep the Monk off the table for now. probably end up chumping with the Cenote against the Otter again, because we're not doing a good job running them out of cards. Oh, there's Vivi. Alright, so, more important. Oh, interesting. So that's going to tap them out. Vivi's not triggering this turn. Alright, so here comes a Tidebinder on the Cory Steel. Alright, that's pretty good news for us overall. We don't have a Kumena, so we're going to play this Evendo. We're going to be able to attack with Tishanas, but not safely with the Cenote. So we'll do the Tishanas first and see if we can tempt him to try and double block it. That'd be a pretty significant misplay, but it's never impossible. Oh, wonderful. Alright. Here comes Hexcatcher. Oh, I shouldn't have trusted the auto tapper there. Would have been better off to have... Oh no, one of them was only green mana. It's fine. We're going to kill the Arcanist first. Alright, so here we go, playing our Evendo. Do we put out a Secret Keeper or do we put out the Mind Spring? I think we put out the Mind Spring, so we're going to station out the Hexcatcher, station the Cenote Scout. Gives us lots of fodder for Hexcatcher counters, depending on what he's going to play. He's got lots of mana up, but we now have a lot of bodies. Okay, too many bodies for his hand. So really, we ran them out of cards. They weren't drawing great. It wasn't the most aggro of plans out of the blue-red Vivi deck, which is lucky for us. But we were able to overcome them with the new station lands and a Deeproot. So we don't really need Merfolk Secretkeeper here. Unlike against the red decks, we're not blocking low power creatures. So we'll drop them out. We saw the Dreadhorde Arcanist, so it's tempting to bring in the unlicensed hearse, but we have other ways to deal with it. So we may not bring it in. We don't need Mistbinders. Lords just aren't the thing in this matchup because we want things that trade for value, not at a loss if they're forced to chump block. We'll bring in a Spell Pierce, see if we can hit any of their early engine cards. With Vivi, I'm going to bring in Unable to Scream and try and kill it. Essence Scatter as well. So now we have the option for Aethergust for red cards or Mystical Dispute for the blues. I think, having seen the Otter enchantment and Vivi, they seem more reliant on blue, so we're going to bring in the Mystical Disputes. Got to drop 3 more cards here. So our options are go down on Deeproot Pilgrimages and count on 2-for-1s with Collected Company. Deeproot's worse on the draw than it is on the play, or we go down on some of our 2-for-1s. We brought in a lot of spells here, so maybe what we do is drop out 1 Kumena, 1 Collected Company, and 1 Silvergill. So it reduces our ability to recover in cards a little bit, and just thins the deck out in favor of the instants and sorceries that we brought in. Let's try this without the hearse and see how it goes. If we see that they've got 4 of Dreadhorde Arcanists, so they cast multiples, I might be more likely to bring the hearse in, but it seems like they're playing it for value as opposed to just going all in on the graveyard strategy. Alright, no lands, easy decision, we'll mulligan. No blue is not going to do it. This isn't even a risky keep. Alright, this'll do. So, here we don't really care about the 1-drop. The Drowner can buy us time. Then the decision is, do we keep Coco or one or both of the Hexcatchers? I think we keep the cards we know we can cast and see what we draw into. Alright, this isn't great, being down cards to start on the draw. If they have a fast start, or a lot of value cantripping, we're going to be in trouble. That's not the fastest start. The sleight of hand on their main seems a little odd. Maybe they're worried about a spell pierce on our turn, so they cast it early. I wouldn't spell pierce that anyway, but alright, we'll play a Mutavault and pass. Let's see what they've got here. They're probably going to try and double spell this turn. Oh, I guess not. Alright, we want that Flood Pits Drowner because it's our only removal at this point, so we're just going to cast a Hexcatcher. I was assuming into removal, but that doesn't seem to be the case. What has he got in his hand? That he's not casting at sorcery speed. Alright, now I'm nervous because that's very weird for them to play nothing on turn 3, not have counter magic or removal up to deal with that Hexcatcher. Too bad our hand doesn't capitalize on that tempo gain better. Alright, there's Vivi. Here comes their second spell. In hindsight, I maybe should have put that breeding pool in untapped. Do we care about Wild Ride? Yes, I think we do. We're gonna counter that and sack that Hexcatcher. Let's keep that tempo down. Alright, so he's gonna make a monk, attach Quarry Steel, that's fine. At 18, we're going to take 3 here, and then tap Vivi down at end of turn so I can bounce it on my turn. We just can't afford to let it build up tokens, and getting it back into their deck will help. Oh, nice. Essence Scatter that we can keep up. So we're going to take 2 damage here. Pair 2 life. Keep that Otawara as a spell for later. Do our attack. Chip in for the damage, remove Vivi, and then we can either Essence Scatter or Hexcatcher if we don't get a creature target here. Yep, that's worth an Essence Scatter. Let's keep some value off the table. They probably have a second spell to cast to get another monk out. Okay, that's not terrible. Alright, we'll play the Otawara to get to 5 mana. This gives us a decent blocker, especially with a Hexcatcher up past the turn. I suspect they're going to use Wild Ride on the Brazen Borrower, which can't really do anything about. Eventually that is going to kill us. I'm kind of hoping they draw running lands here so we can catch up. If they're able to double spell, it's a bit of a pain. Yeah, okay, that's what I expected there. Oh, they had another Wild Ride in hand. Oh, that's nasty. Why wouldn't they continue to cast that on the Borrower? That is a sorcery. So, play the Hexcatcher. I'm gonna have to chomp that 6/3. That's unfortunate. Alright. Block one monk, chump block the other monk. Can't tap for any value here. I don't think this is very winnable. We're going to keep this card in hand to bluff, see if he hesitates. It's unlikely he wouldn't attack with that Brazen Borrower in this circumstance, but you never know. Stranger things have happened. But he's got the win on board with the Wild Ride we know about and the Brazen Borrower flying over. Alright, there they are. We can concede game 2. Alright, bit of a slow hand, and those wild rides messed with us. Now that we've seen another graveyard-centric card, we're going to bring in the hearses. I think I'm going to swap them out for the Silver Gill Adepts. It seems like they're trying to do their plan more than they are trying to stop us on ours. It's always an advantage with these decks if blue-red spells decides that they are the control deck against us. That's what we want. We can out-card advantage them long-term if they keep chipping in and using removal spells on our little guys or even our more important cards. Take the play. That mana sucks, so we have to mulligan again. One of the unfortunate costs of playing the greedy mana base that we play in this deck. Alright, so this is going to be a keep at 6 with the Glasspool Mimic and the Yevmaya Coast. We're counting on drawing into more lands, but we got to keep this one. Everything else is interaction, so we've got to pitch the Coco. Glasspool first. Play the tapped land as our 1-drop to pay for our greedy mana base. So next turn is either going to be a Drowner if it's got a target, or a Hexcatcher if it does not. We're going to try and hold that Unable to Scream for something important. Given that we don't have the graveyard interaction, if we don't hit a 3rd mana, we would use it on a Dreadhorde Arcanist, but we really want to hit a Vivi. Suppose in a pinch it could hit a Borrower if we're going to get killed by the flyer again. Oh, great. We got the payoff that we want with an additional land. I don't need to play 3-Tree City yet. I will play that and make sure I've got green available. Let's see what this turn. Best case scenario here is he casts Corey Steel Cutter that we can counter with Hexcatcher. All right. Love it when I'm talking about a best case scenario and it happens. Let's keep that Corey Steel Cutter off the table. Really minimize the value that they can get out of it. Perfect. Now we've got 3 mana with 2 Tidebinders and a Floodpits Drowner as an alternate up. I guess best case scenario here is a Vivi. Alright, with 2 different options here, I'm going to cast a Tidebinder. Usually I'd cast a Floodpits Drowner first, but I want to keep my options open depending on what type of thing we're trying to deal with. Oh, a Mystical Dispute. Alright. He's trying to play a little control. We can keep playing at instant speed with that Hexcatcher, so we'll pass it back to his turn. Alright, Hexcatcher it is. See if we get Mystical Disputed again. No? Removal spell? No? Okay. There's no world where we need 4 mana up this turn. I guess if he has a Censor, or that would be it. But we're not going to take the 2 damage. I don't think there's any flash creatures in this deck. We'll find out if there are, and we've got a Floodpits Drowner to deal with them if we don't want to trade it for the Hexcatcher. So, turn 4, we're getting in for the first damage of the game on either side. Alright, Dreadhorde Arcanist. Let's Drowner that. Worst case, he counters this Drowner, and then we Unable to Scream the Arcanist. Alright, he can't attack for a couple of turns. Oh, and we got another Drowner in hand. That is excellent. Alright, let's get in there. If they go to use a removal spell on the Drowner, obviously we will activate it. Otherwise, we're actually going to leave it on the table. Dreadhorde Arcanist only activates when it attacks, and we've got a second ability to tap it down here. Alright, here comes a Borrower on my end step. Ooh, another Arcanist. What has he got in there? Just a Sleight of Hand. Interesting. Alright, so I think here we'd probably Drowner the Borrower. Nope, not anymore. So here we have the ability to trade for it with the Tidebinder, so we're going to let him come in with it. So when he attacks, it'll trigger. Tidebinder the ability, remove the trample, block with the Floodpits Drowner. Alright. That's unable to scream that Arcanist, so he can't do the same thing next turn. We will get in with these two. Alright, and drop a Mindspring Merfolk. We'll use that Floodpits Drowner to hit whatever he targets with Wild Ride, probably the Borrower. Dreadhorde Arcanist would be an interesting play. Alright, let's see if he's going to cast anything else at sorcery speed. No, going to attacks. Let's tap that down. Damage is definitely worth it off the Yavimaya coast there. And we got a scoop, so we disrupted their plan long enough on this blue-red Vivi deck to win it. I think here we benefited from their mixed strategy of Graveyard and Borrowers, and them not hitting a lot of removal. Seems like they brought in their counter magic instead of their removal spells, and I mean, counter magic just isn't outstanding against anything but our Coco and Deeproot Pilgrimage plan. So, a nice win to start off the recording.